tomato that was grown in my backyard. Pretty normal, average tomato. Now, this is a tomato that I picked up at the grocery store last night. Now, all it says is that it's from Mexico, as far as I know. And I'm willing to bet, though, that this is a genetically engineered tomato. That it was genetically engineered to grow bigger, faster, to taste better, to be impervious to pesticides, and most importantly, to have a longer shelf life. Tomato. Now, what Proposition 37 aims to do is simply slap a little genetically engineered label onto this genetically engineered tomato so that we can tell the difference in stores today. This should be important to you guys because it's estimated that 40 to 70% of the food that we eat, the processed foods that we find in our grocery stores, contain genetically engineered products. That's according to the Attorney General. Now, according to Richard Dole, though, he's the CEO of Dole Food Company, a company that's majorly invested in genetically engineered food products. He says that 60 to 70% of our food products contain genetically engineered material like this. Now, other statistics point more towards genetically engineered food affecting malnutrition and obesity. Our 33% population obesity rate, 17% malnourished, with 40% of the food in our country ending up in the garbage can. Now, today I would like to talk to you a little bit more about Proposition 37 and the effects that it will have on plants, animals, and humans. First, I would like to talk about Proposition 37 and what it will be changing for genetically engineered plants. Now, in stores today, we can label genetically engineered plants and products like this as organic or all natural. Under Proposition 37's guidelines, they won't be able to do that anymore. And more importantly, in the 1 in 4 fields here in California that contain genetically engineered crop like this, those fields are cross-contaminating more organic fields. So those organic fields are not only, it's a little bit unfair because this could be labeled as organic, and fields that don't contain any pesticides are also labeling their products as organic, but they're not impervious to the pesticides that they're spraying on these fields. So what ends up happening is you have a farm that contains genetically engineered crop, which is majorly in the hands of the agribusiness giants. Because let's be honest, it is really expensive and really time-consuming to get biological engineers to be able to genetically alter these using, say, a kiwi to make this last longer in the store. So the only ones that are really able to afford it are the major food companies. We're talking about Dole or Green Giant, those major ones that you hear about. So it's not really like the little small town farms or anything like that. But what ends up happening is their products are immune to pesticides. So they can spray their fields and get rid of the weeds and get rid of the insects, and their crops will still grow. But when right next door you have an organic farm, those pesticides are carried over. Also, the seeds are cross-contaminating the organic fields. So it's causing a lot of problems for these little farmers right now. Also, for Andrew Kimmel, he is the executive director of the Food and Safety Administration. He says that there's a lot of problems with genetically engineered food, saying that there are a lot of startling physical abnormalities. Take the size of this, for example. Also, that there was a failed test for allergies, and that the testing groups weren't really adequate. And the Food and Safety Administration had a lot of problems with the testing that they used in these products, but according to Richard Dole, there's also been no tests saying that genetically engineered food is unsafe. So, now I would also like, now that I've talked to you about genetically engineered plants, I'd like to talk to you a little bit more about genetically engineered animals, and more specifically how Proposition 37 will change the way those are labeled. Now, today we have a lot of genetically engineered fish. Take salmon, for example. I wrote an essay about salmon a couple years back, where they were worried about the genetically engineered salmon, where they would grow twice as fast, twice as big. They would also reproduce twice as fast, twice as big. And they would also eat twice as much, because they were growing twice as big. Their problem, though, was they were worried about an outbreak of this genetic material. They were worried that if some of these salmon were let out into the open water fields, like stream life and everything like that, they were worried that they would replicate too fast and we would lose control of the population supply. Now, as far as us eating it is concerned, though, they found that it's safe, typically. And in the stores, they plan to only label the products that were specifically genetically engineered themselves, such as the salmon, but not the animals that have been eating genetically engineered products, like corn. Corn is almost 90% genetically engineered, so is soy products. Now, you take a lot of cows that are eating these, chickens that are eating these, and you saw the chickens earlier. They grow enormous to the point where they can't walk anymore. But they're not genetically engineered themselves. So in the stores, as far as labeling is concerned, they wouldn't be labeled as genetically engineered. So they have at least that protection. Thirdly, now that I've talked to you about genetically engineered plants and genetically engineered animals, I would like to talk to you a little bit more about how Proposition 37 will be affecting humans in the long run, that's us. Now, financially, it's the agribusiness giants that are going to have to pay for all of these labels. And it costs a lot of money. They're estimating almost $2 billion that they're going to have to be paying out to label all of these food products. And there's also going to be mass recalls in the stores because they have to take back all the products that don't have that labeling right now, which is 40 to 70% of the food products right now, and relabel them, re-administer them. Now, at the same time, it's not really going to affect the small farmers, though, because they can't afford genetically modified products themselves. But more importantly, for us, we can walk into a grocery store and we can look at these 2 tomatoes and we can tell ourselves with honesty, this is probably not organic. There's probably a lot of pesticides on this. It will be labeled really clearly for us that this is genetically engineered and this is not. Now that I've talked to you about genetically engineered plants, animals, and how it will affect us in the stores, yes, I've discussed all of my points. Now for us, we'll get more labeling.